Hello, algebra students, and welcome to lesson 4.3 on writing equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. Before we begin with equations, first let's review what are parallel lines and what are perpendicular lines. Parallel lines are two lines that never intersect. They have the same slope. So all vertical lines are parallel. Those are the ones going straight up and down. Those are actually not functions, but they're all parallel. And then all horizontal lines are parallel lines. Those are the ones with a slope of 0 because they all have the same slope. Then perpendicular lines are two lines that intersect at a right 90-degree angle. Their slopes are opposite reciprocals. So opposite means positive, negative, and reciprocals are when we flip the fraction. So horizontal lines and vertical lines are all perpendicular to each other. All right, so first we're going to work on identifying parallel lines. Remember, we just said parallel lines have the same slope. So to figure out which ones are parallel, first we have to figure out the slope. So let's look at example A, which is just at the graph. We're going to find the slope of these three lines. I'll even color coordinate. So the blue one goes down 1 and then over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the slope is -1 over 5. Went down 1 over 5. Remember, slope is rise over run. The red line goes down 1 and then over 1, 2, 3, 4. So down 1 over 4. And the green line goes down 1 and then over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So just by looking at the slopes, the two lines that are parallel are going to be the blue one and the green one. All right, so now let's look at equations to see which lines are parallel. We can see the slope in the first one, line A. Slope is 4 because it's already in slope-intercept form for us. However, line B and line C, we're going to have to rearrange a little bit so that we can see the slope. So line B, I need to get y by itself. First, I'm going to subtract x from both sides. Cancels out on the left, so now I have 4y equals 3 minus x. Then we need to get rid of the 4. To get rid of multiplication, we divide. And when I divide, I need to divide every single term by 4. So now I have y equals, I'm going to put this term first. Negative x over 4 is the same thing as negative 1/4 x. Plus 3/4. So now I can see that m is negative 1/4. And so far we have line A and B are not parallel. Next we're going to rearrange line C. So get y by itself. First I'm going to move the 2x over. Cancels out on the left. So I have negative 8y equals 2x plus 16. Then I need to divide by negative 8, divide every single term by negative 8, and I get y equals, let's see, 2 divided by negative 8 is negative 1/4, x minus 2, because positive 16 divided by negative 8 is negative 2. And here I have m equals negative 1/4, there's my slope. So lines B and C are parallel. They have the same slope. All right, so now that we can identify the slope of parallel lines, let's work on writing equations of parallel lines. There are two ways to do this. We can go back to point-slope form, start with that, and then we'll convert it to slope-intercept. So remember, point-slope form is what we did last section. Y minus the y point equals the slope times x minus the x point. So that was point-slope form. We can start with that, or we can actually plug in x and y and find b. So I'm going to show you both examples. We'll start with point slope, and then for part B, I'll show you plugging in. And I'll do the same thing when we get to perpendicular lines. Okay, so part A says write an equation of the line that passes through 5, negative 4, and is parallel to the line y equals 2x plus 3. Well, the slope of this line is 2. M equals 2, that's supposed to be an M. And since I know all parallel lines have the same slope, I know the slope of this equation is also going to be 2. So we're just going to plug in to point slope. So my y point is negative 4, Minus -4 becomes +4. Slope is 2, and then my x point is 5. So remember, there are 2 steps to convert point slope to slope intercept. Step 1 is to distribute the slope. So now I have y plus 4 equals 2x, and then 2 times -5 is -10. And then the second step is to get y by itself. So now we're going to subtract 4 from both sides, and I have y equals 2x minus 14. There's my equation. All right, so if you don't have those steps written down somewhere, I would have convert from point slope to slope intercept. Step 1, distribute the slope. Step 2, get y by itself, which is actually going to be undoing the y point. Okay, so now I want to show you the second method of getting an equation in slope intercept form. When we have the slope and the point, we can actually plug in -4 and 2. So I'm just reading my ordered pair here. 2x and y, so that then we can find the intercept. Okay, so write an equation of the line that passes through -4, 2 and is parallel to the line y equals 1/4 x plus 1. I know my slope is 1/4. So to figure out what that intercept is, because the intercept is going to be different for this equation, I can actually plug in x and y and then solve for b. So here b is 1, but b will be different for my parallel line. So I'm going to have y, or 2, equals m, or 1/4, times x, which is -4, plus b. Now I'm solving for b. So get b by itself. First we need to actually multiply these. 1/4 of -4 is going to be -1. And then we add 1 to both sides. 2 plus 1 is 3. b equals 3. So now I'm going off my equation y equals mx plus b. Now I know what b is. I already knew what m was. So my final equation is going to be y equals 1/4 x plus 3. So there are 2 methods to writing the equation. You can use point slope and convert it, or you can plug in x and y, solve for b, then write it in slope intercept form. All right, so now let's move on to perpendicular lines. Remember, perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So opposite is going to be positive and negative, and then reciprocal is when we flip the fraction. So all of these equations we need to rearrange so that they are y equals mx plus b, and we can see what m is. We don't have to rearrange b, actually. I can see y equals mx plus b, so m is 3. All right, let's start with a. So to get y by itself, first I need to get rid of the x term. I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides, and then I have 6y equals -2x minus 3. And then we need to divide by 6. Divide every single term by 6, and we get y equals -1/3 x, because -2 divided by 6 is -1/3, and then -3 divided by 6 is -1/2. So m is -1/3. All right, and c, getting y by itself, first we're going to get rid of the x term, so minus 18x from both sides. And I have -6y equals -18x plus 9. Then we divide every single term by -6. And we get y equals -18 divided by -6 is 3x plus -3/2. So m is 3. All right, so I have 3 slopes now. I have -1/3, 3, and 3. So line B and C are actually parallel because they have the same slope. There's a fancy way to write this. We could say B is parallel to C. Those 2 lines straight up and down mean parallel. But then opposite reciprocal, -1/3 is the opposite reciprocal of 3. So line A is perpendicular to B, and line A is perpendicular to C. So if we're looking for the perpendicular line, it would be line A, and it is actually perpendicular to both. because it has the opposite reciprocal slope. All right, last example, we're gonna write equations of perpendicular lines. So first we're gonna figure out the slope, and then you can either use point slope form again, or you can plug in x and y and solve for b. So I'll write point slope at the top again, just in case we forgot it. All right, example A, write an equation of the line that passes through -3, 1 and is perpendicular to the line y equals 1/2 x plus 3. All right, so I want you to pause for a second and think, what would the perpendicular slope be to 1/2? It has to be the opposite reciprocal, so positive 1/2, the opposite will be negative, and then the reciprocal of 1/2 is going to be 2/1, or just the whole number 2. So I have my slope equals -2. All right, pause over. You didn't actually have to pause the video. We're going to keep going. All right, so I could plug in x and y to my point slope form. So y minus the y point is 1 equals slope -2 times x minus the x point, which is -3, so we're going to say x plus 3. And then there are 2 steps to convert this to slope-intercept. First step is distribute the slope. So I have -2x, and then -2 times 3 is going to be -6. And then second step is to get y by itself. So I'm going to add 1 to both sides, and I get y equals -2x, -6 plus 1 is -5. Ah. There is my equation. All right, the second way to write the equation of a perpendicular line, when we know the slope and a point, is to actually plug in the point for x and y and solve for b. So this is going off the equation y equals mx plus b. So first we need to find the slope. The one that's perpendicular to it, this slope is -3. So I need to find the opposite reciprocal of -3. The opposite of 3 is going to be positive. And then 3, remember any whole number can be written as a fraction over 1. So 3 is the same thing as 3/1, which means the reciprocal is going to be 1/3. So the opposite reciprocal of -3 is positive 1/3. All right, so now I'm going to plug in x, y, and m and solve for b. Y is 5, m is 1/3, x is -3, plus b. So 1/3 of -3 is -1, so now I have 5 equals -1 plus b. And we're going to add 1 to both sides, and 6 equals b. So now I can write my slope-intercept equation. Y equals 1/3 x plus 6. There is my perpendicular line. And you will not need to know both methods. This is how the questions are going to look on the test. So write an equation of a line that passes through a point and is either parallel or perpendicular to another line. So you'll have to find the slope. And then you can choose which method works better for you. So if you like point slope better, you can use point slope. If you like plugging them in to solve for b, you can use that. Whichever works better for you. All right, and let's summarize what we've learned today. If you are given 2 lines, how do you determine if the lines are parallel? Well, parallel lines have the same slope. I'll go ahead and write that same slope. And that was parallel. And then how do you write the equations of parallel lines? Well, first we have to find the slope, which is the same. And then we can either use point slope by plugging in the x and y values and then convert it, or you can plug in x and y and solve for b. If you are given 2 lines, how do you determine if they are perpendicular? Perpendicular has opposite reciprocal slopes. And how do you write equations of perpendicular lines? Very similar to parallel. First you need to find the slope, and then you can either choose to use point slope and convert to slope-intercept, or plug in x and y and find the intercept.